Hey, what's going on, guys? It's ETA Prime back here again. Today I received a package in the mail and I'm super excited to show you guys. Before we get started here, I just want to let you know that yes, the company did send me this board for review. If the board sucks, I'm going to tell you that it sucks. If I can use this board in some way and I enjoy it, I will tell you this board is awesome and I can use it in some way and I really enjoy it. They are not reviewing any of my videos before I post them. This is my own opinion on the product. We'll be taking a first look at the up board. Now this little thing looks promising. You've seen recent videos I've posted of the Latte Panda. This is very similar to the Latte Panda. Let's get it out of the box and see how it looks. So here it is, guys, the up board. This board features an Atom X5 Z8350 clocked in at 1.44 gigahertz. It will turbo up to 1.92 gigahertz. This model here has 4 GB of DDR3 RAM at 1600 megahertz. It also has 32 GB onboard storage. They sell a plethora of configurations. You can get them with 2 GB of RAM, with 16 GB of storage, all the way up to 64 GB of storage and 4 GB of RAM. This is the 4 GB 32 model. We have 40 GPIO pins, HDMI, 4 USB 2.0 ports, Gigabit Ethernet. Over on this side, we have our USB OTG connection, HDMI, and a barrel jack for power. So this board does not come preloaded with an operating system, but it supports Ubuntu, Linux, Android, and Windows 10. There are several other operating systems that I'm going to be testing. So let's do a little size comparison between the Latte Panda and Raspberry Pi 2 and the up board. So here we have the up board. Next, we have the Latte Panda, which is a bit wider, but it's about the same length. And the Raspberry Pi 2, which is the same size as the Raspberry Pi 3 or the Raspberry Pi. Now, the Latte Panda is a bit bigger than all of these boards, width-wise, but this thing is pretty much exactly the same size as the Raspberry Pi. Really awesome. Same layout as the Raspberry Pi, so a lot of the hats are probably going to work on the up board. Now, in the first tests that I'm going to be doing, I'm going to run Windows 10 because there are tons of things that I want to do with Windows 10 on this little board. I did get some extra goodies with this thing, and I'm going to show them to you now. One of the really cool things that did come with this board is the power supply. Now, I know a lot of you kind of just overlook power supplies and everything, but this honker here is a 4 amp 5 volt power supply. Barrel jack. So I am actually going to be using this for a lot of my projects at 4 amps. This is really, really awesome. It did come with the European and other connectors, but I have the US one on here. Next up, we have the ability to add 2 more USB ports. So a total of 6 USB 2.0 ports. Really awesome. Also came with the OTG cable for USB 3.0. They sent me a wireless adapter because it does not have Wi-Fi or Bluetooth built in. It's not a big deal though. These are a dime a dozen. You can get these for like $3 on Amazon. HDMI cable, very basic. And blam, a heatsink with a fan. Now it comes preloaded with a heatsink on it. But before I even start throwing operating systems on here, I am definitely going to be switching out to the fan version. It doesn't have as much aluminum or as much surface area as the stock heatsink, but the fan should definitely keep this CPU cool. Something that the Latte Panda really struggled with without a heatsink. So let's take a closer look at the board. So as you notice, we have a battery for the BIOS, so we can keep all of our settings for the BIOS, and this should be replaceable. I'm sure I can find these, but I probably won't kill this battery anyway. Like I showed you before, we do have HDMI, USB 3.0 OTG, a barrel jack for our 5 volt 4 amp input. On this side, we have the CSI and the DSI connector for screens and cameras. And right here, I believe this is where the extra 2 USB 2.0 ports are going to attach. 40 GPIO pins, 4 USB 2.0s, and gigabit Ethernet. On the back side here, nothing much except for the mount here. Now I believe this will keep the RAM chips cool. As you see, there's a little indentation here, and it looks like there is some thermal pads under here. Extra cooling there. So I am super excited about this board, guys. Here's the deal. It does have the upgraded version of the Atom X5 CPU compared to the Latte Panda. It does clock a little bit higher. The Latte Panda is supposed to clock to 1.8. This will clock to 1.9. It does have the same GPU, but I'm hoping this extra little bit of power and those 2 gigabytes of extra RAM will help me out in running all the applications I'd love to run on Windows. So in this video, what I'm going to do is install Windows 10. Now I don't have a license key, but if the board works good enough, I'm going to buy a license key in the next day or two. They're like $20 on cdkeys.com or eBay. I'm going to run a few benchmarks on it, and I want to get all the Windows 10 testing out of the way this weekend. And Monday, I'll install Linux and do some Linux testing, and then we'll move to Android. Let's move over to a PC and see how this thing runs. Okay, so real quick, I wanted to go over their models and their pricing. Now, it is surprising looking at the prices here for what the board is. I mean, these are small SBC boards with Atom CPUs. The lowest end model here is $99 all the way up to $149. As you can see, the highest model here has 4 gigabytes of RAM and 64 gigabytes of onboard storage. What I did was I added one to my cart, the lower end model, the $99 model. And it's $120 after it's said and done. I don't even think that's freaking shipping. Shipping's not included. Nope. So I'd have to sign in and everything and see what shipping is. So I could expect another at least $10 on top of this. So we're talking $130. Now the Raspberry Pi 3 that I have and the 2, after it was all said and done, was about $48 shipped to my door. Not too bad. But this board is more powerful than the Pi. I know the Pi has lots and lots of community support behind it, but this board runs Windows, and Windows is one of the most used operating systems in the world right now. So we can run Linux, Android, and Windows on this board. It's still kind of expensive for my taste here. I mean, after tax shipping, it's probably $135, I gotta say. Okay guys, so I got Windows 10 installed, no problem. It went very, very smooth. It is unregistered right now, but that should not affect performance in any way. This thing is actually really snappy. I'm very surprised. Control Shift Escape will just bring up the task manager here. And performance, we have the Atom X5 Z8350 CPU. Now it should turbo boost up to 1.9 gigahertz instead of the 1.8 that the Latte Panda claims, but I've never seen the Panda go up there except for one time, and it didn't stay there long. It's usually at 1.66 gigahertz. I did install the active heatsink cooler just to keep the temps down. Memory, we have the 4 gigabyte model here, 1 gigabyte in use, available 2.3. I did try to up the GPU memory, but it's at 512 megabytes. And as of right now, with this BIOS that's installed, that seems like the max. I do have Ethernet running right now. I always run on Ethernet with all my single board computers because they're really close. I got a bunch of Ethernet cables running down on my desk anyway. So first up, let's check the SunSpider benchmark. Now this is a trusty old benchmark that I run on every board, every single device I get pretty much. Anything that can go on the internet and do Java, I will test with SunSpider. This is a browser-based Java benchmark. Kind of old, it is outdated, but I've run it on so many devices, I kind of know what a good score is. Now this will vary depending on the browser you're using, and the Edge browser is very, very good at JavaScript within the browser. It's actually faster than Chrome. I haven't installed Chrome yet, but we'll work on all of that later. So we scored a 547.8 milliseconds. Now the Raspberry Pi scores anywhere from, depending on your operating system and web browser, anywhere from 1900 all the way up to 3500 I've seen. So significantly faster. It does really depend on the browser here. Hardware does make a difference, but the browser is doing most of the work. So let's run a Geekbench 4 really quick here. I am running a USB 60 gigabyte SSD also, just to get a little extra storage out of it because we only have 32 gigabytes. They do offer a SATA hat for this thing that'll go up to 1 terabyte, so you can put a M.2 SATA in there. It's kind of expensive, but it's a really cool option. We're just going to run the CPU benchmark here. So for Geekbench 4, we scored a 884 on the single core side. On the multi-core side, we scored a 2,417. Really, really not that bad. This isn't a top-of-the-line board. It is running an Atom X5. I'm actually impressed that it scored this much. While running the test, I was just kind of touching the heatsink, and it's not even warm with that active cooler on it. So next up, let's run 3D Mark. I mean, why not? So we'll go to benchmarks here, and I gotta say, let's run Skydiver. We might as well. Mid-range PCs. Let's run it and see what it scores. Okay, so we're better than 1% of all results. Really bad score here. I've never tested Skydiver with any boards. Actually, I tried to test this on the Latte Panda, but I could not get 3D Mark to launch, so I wasn't able to ever test this out. 957, so let's say an Office PC from 2013 scored a 2050. We are working with a Intel Atom Cherry Trail mobile processor, and it's saying here that our maximum turbo is not 1.9, even though that is advertised. Let's try one more benchmark here. We'll do Ice Storm Extreme. This is for low-cost mobile hardware. 13,752. Let's compare some results online. Better than 5% of all results. Let's check this notebook out. Core i7 55. Yeah, that's a decent notebook there. Scores a 42,000. We're only close to 14,000. I didn't expect too much. Really not that bad for this tiny little board. So what I'm going to do is install this on the Latte Panda, run all these benchmarks again, and we're going to do a Latte Panda versus the Upboard face-off in a future video. Overall, I am very pleased. Now, I have tested a lot of stuff. I've tested some video playback, and I'll be making videos on all of this right now, but I just wanted to give you guys a first look at this board. So my next few videos will consist of, will it run Crysis, will it run Warcraft, and things like that. We're going to move on to some old school retro game emulation. We'll probably use RetroArch and like Project 64 and things like that. I'll do some Kodi performance and things like that. So if you guys want to see anything running on this Upboard, let me know in the comments below. I gotta say that I did try Crysis and it runs a lot better on this board than it does on the Latte Panda. And I think it's due to the extra 2 gigabytes of RAM. I appreciate you guys watching. There are links in the description if you want to go to the Upboard website and check this thing out. Overall, my first impressions of this board are, it seems faster than the Latte Panda. Now, opening up applications and things like that seem to work a lot better. It could be due to faster RAM or just faster storage. I'm not sure. But I have a lot more videos coming up shortly, guys. I really appreciate you watching. If you could hit that like button and subscribe and stay tuned. This weekend, I will have tons of videos on this board. Like always, thanks for watching.